Good afternoon, everybody. What I'd really like is probably about 3 hours to help you, listening to the things that are issues for everybody. My background is that I'm a business advisor, and I have a specialism in helping businesses to manage design. I have both a business background, so I started with a business studies degree and went on to study interior design. For the first part of my career, I was a commercial interior designer working on those big buildings that you see in London. But I then went on to do a master's in design leadership, which makes me smile because I just have this image of me going, I'm a designer, follow me, sort of thing. But it was really about understanding how businesses use design in its entirety. And as I finished that, in England, business links were being set up, and there was a role called a design counsellor. And it was to help small and medium-sized businesses to use design. I had to actually work out how to develop a methodology to help the businesses to use design. And that was 15 years ago. And so I've had a lot of experience with businesses helping them. One of the things I had to do to start off with was actually find designers. And where I was working was the east of England. And we have a similarity probably close to you. Don't think of us as London. We're the east of London. We get forgotten. So in Essex and also Suffolk, Norfolk, that area. And we suffer terribly from designers not being London. So businesses assume that a London designer somehow is going to be better, whereas there are just as good designers in the east of England and just as professional and certainly less expensive. So one of the things that I did was to actually bring together designers. A lot of those designers are sole traders. And my work really has been very much about developing businesses. With my background, I've always been a bridge between business and design, but my company CEOSTRA, which I set up with others in 2004, is really about working with managing directors, management teams to develop strategically. So I went full circle back into sort of the business side because I found that whenever I was helping them with design side, actually you had to start with the business strategy. It also tends to cover marketing and design strategy for me as a specialist. And in doing that, it's very much about before they get a designer involved, if I'm developing a design strategy. So helping the business really understand what they need to achieve before they launch into a project, and picking up on something somebody said about what if they present something. And I have one slide at the end. If we get to it, I'll talk about some of those business things, but I wasn't sure we'll have time. And it's very much they have to have really thought through, because they'll often say, it used to be I need a brochure, and then it became I need a website. And actually what they needed was more business, or they needed new products. So you really have to question sometimes. So I do that work with the businesses so that they're ready to work with a designer. And like Ian, I have a methodology. I have an outline design brief that I make them fill in before they work with a designer. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. I make sure that the project works by supporting them during the project, and then helping the business afterwards, because it's no good that you do one blip and give them a lift and then leave them to it. So that's very much working as my company CEOSTRA. So I'm on the client side, and what I see is the designers pitching. So I can give you a bit of help in understanding how, from the business side, how they're looking at you. What I did in 2004 was a funded project. I think we had European funding, Innovative Actions funding. And as part of that, I did workshops. So I did half-day workshops with the businesses, helping them to look at their identity, communications, websites, product development, service development. And most of this was with established businesses. But I had a belief that a really good identity and good communications material were critical to a startup. One of the issues for a startup is credibility. So most startup businesses say, oh, I'll get to that later. You know, I can't afford to do that. And I believe that it was very, very important to them and would be a critical difference. So I specifically kept some funding around startups and ran half-day workshops with startup businesses, about 12 at a time. And I would take them through identity branding, websites, literature. And then those that wanted to could go on to work with a designer. And we didn't have funding for the design side, so I persuaded the Designers Network to put together a package for just £1,000 to create an identity, a piece of literature, business cards, a business stationery, and the design for a website, not the website itself. And I made the startups write an outline design brief, very important because it puts there what they're trying to achieve, it makes them think through what's different about them. And I had 1 hour with each of them just to sort of knock that outline brief into shape. And then I set up a session of speed dating with designers so that the designers weren't spending a huge amount of time pitching to lots and lots and lots of businesses, and the businesses didn't spend a huge amount of time because we were all trying to do it within a very limited budget. And I'll talk a little bit about the results of that in a minute. What I did was I got the businesses together first, and we already had the designers' portfolio, so I went through them and showed them how to look at design. I think businesses get scared of creative things because they don't know how to judge it, but I started to get them to be comfortable that they can judge things just like if they were employing a solicitor or somebody as an accountant. You can, as a business, you can do it, and giving them the confidence that they could do that, so showing them how to look at a portfolio. And then we had 6 designers, and one time 6 businesses, another time 8 businesses. And the designer, I set up a table, I put 2 chairs in front, a table so they could go through the portfolios, and we had 15 minutes each time, and then they moved on, just like speed dating. And it was 5 minutes for the designer to present themselves, 5 minutes for the business to present themselves, and then 5 minutes for them to just quickly discuss the project. And at the end of it, the business would say to me, I'd like to work with that designer, and the designers say, I'm willing to work with that business. And it worked extremely, extremely well. We got very good results. We had 8 startups that went through it. And I tried to check back. This is now 8 years later. As far as I know, all but one of those businesses is still in business, which for startups is good, and I think it helped them significantly. One thing for you, when we were doing the speed dating, I'd set up these chairs and tables with the chairs on the same side, so they were working, the business and the designer would be together. But one of the designers, very, very nervous, pushed the table forward and put his chair behind, and this was very much significant of how he felt. He was very, very nervous. And I think the speed dating helped the designers as much as it helped the startups, because they had to be succinct about describing themselves. They had to learn to put themselves forward to a business, and he really, really learned how to present his business. And now if he pitches, he's still nervous, but he has beautifully organised in folders, examples of material, and he knows the story, and I'll talk about that a bit later. That it's really important that when you're presenting work, you've got a good story. So even though he's nervous, businesses now can see beyond what he was presenting originally. And just to show you just very quickly, some of the projects were very simple. This lady was a horticultural consultant. I don't think, we can just about see it's a green thumbprint. She said, I don't want flowers. Everybody's got flowers, you know, no plants, please. And hers, simply, she wanted a stationery, a business card, and she put up basically a sort of billboard type website. Very, very simple. This business was the very first one to go through the startup one, and this was what he'd designed for himself. He's a web developer. I won't call him a web designer because he was a techie, and he designed this. And during the workshops, I get people to present their own stuff, what their existing literature, their business. This is the workshops for the businesses, not the designers. And when he showed the rest of his table this, they said, you look like a toy company or maybe clothing. And I actually found him a hairdresser nearby called Jamella, and he admitted it was his children, Jamie and Ella, and he just did not look like a technology company whatsoever. And he chose one extremely good designer to work with in the speed dating session, and this is what they came up with. They worked together to come up with the name. Worked very well. Initially, just stationery report cover. This was a report cover. And the first time he pitched with a proposal with this report cover, they expected him to be too expensive, because suddenly he didn't look like a startup. He looked like a proper established business. And he simply became too busy. Ironically, it took him, I think, 18 months before he even put a website up. What's interesting for and he thought it was so good, he put the logo on the top of his Mini, which is still there to this day. What is interesting from your point of view is that he very much decided that his target market actually was designers, so he had to look really good for designers. But it led to collaboration. So two of the people, the designer who did his identity and one of the other multimedia designers, still worked with him to this day. And we've had lots of other collaborations that have come out of this. We had really good results, I think, in terms of things continuing. And I'll just show one that is not the best example of a website. I'm not actually sure how it comes out. It comes better on my screen, I apologise. But this one was interesting. I was quite disappointed because this was the nervous designer. He created this really nice identity. The guy was Iranian, and his name means two swords. He does hotel management. He wanted to look very established and very smart. And I was very disappointed after a few years because I found his website had changed to a different identity. Obviously somebody typical techie developer, oh, I can do something for you, you know, ditch that. What I was really pleased was I looked recently and he's gone back to the identity that the initial designer created for him. So maybe not the best website, but at least he's come back to that identity, which shows that it was right. Can I just ask, sound-wise, as I come close to this, it gets louder to me. Are you hearing it through two mics? Should that one be turned away or something? No? It's okay? Right. So that's just an examples of the project that I did. And, one thing I wanted to ask you first was, in terms of disciplines here, who's a creative for a start? So, we do have a majority. I began to wonder where we got a lot of others. So what sort of disciplines are you from? Who are designers? Yeah. Of those who are graphic designers? Any other sorts of designers?
Product design.
Product design? Textiles? Jewellery? Yeah. And what other creatives do we have here? Theatres, actors? Puppetry. Excellent. Architecture. Writing. Photography.
Writing, film, and visual arts.
More photography.
Writing,
Writing and film and video. Dance. Excellent. So we've got quite a, I think it's a daunting range of talent here. I think there's a fantastic opportunity for you to be working with businesses. I know the project that I've been working with specifically around design, but I see exactly the same opportunity for any creative business to actually work with businesses and make a difference, because you take a different approach to the business that's there and make them think hard. I always feel that if a business says to me, you made me think, even if nothing else, I made them think differently, then it's really worthwhile. And I'm going to go through some ideas about how you present yourselves, and I'm sure that there's lots of people who've been involved in marketing who probably this is very familiar to, but maybe it's good for you to think about how it applies to yourself, because I find that I often don't apply what I do to businesses to myself. And I was thinking, firstly, if these businesses are going to be assessing you and deciding whether they take you on, we've had some comments about it, what criteria do you think they're going to be using to assess you? Value for money would be one?
Past success.
Getting a success from it?
Past success.
Past success. So so what your track record is, maybe examples of work that you've done, that's going to be important. What other criteria do you think?
Likely impact.
Sorry?
Your likely impact.
Likely impact on their business?
Confidence of putting forward ideas.
Right, so your confidence in putting forward ideas. Yeah?
Do they feel they can build a relationship with you? Connection.
Yeah, so making relationships. Professional presence. Yeah?
Professionalism.
Professionalism, right.
Trust,
Yeah.
experience.
Trust, experience, sort of background. They've got to trust you, haven't they? They've got to believe. That's the problem with a service, isn't it? If you're buying a service, you can't assess it if I'm buying this glass, I can work out whether I want to buy it. But when it comes to service, it's got to be about trust. So they've got to believe that you're going to deliver what they need from you. And it's how you build that trust. What other thoughts have you got? You got there? Okay, well, this is my list. So when I'm advising businesses, I'm asking them to look at, has that particular person got the capabilities? If I'm putting a designer forward, well, it's likely I wouldn't put them forward if they don't have the capabilities. Do you understand their business? They're looking for you to echo and show that you have an understanding of their business. Do you understand that specific challenge that's being put forward? Does the chemistry work? You said relationships. To me, at the end of the day, when